Hey guys, so this is the video on effective velocity that I've been promising for so long, and I've finally gotten around to sitting down and getting it done. In this video, I'm going to be comparing a couple of different things. Two of the most important things here are effective velocity and real velocity. So here we go. Real velocity is the number that everybody is so infatuated with these days. It's the number that you get from the radar gun. Real velocity is the true number of how fast the fastball off your hand or whatever pitch you're throwing is actually moving. That's one part of velocity. The second type of velocity that we're looking at today is called effective velocity. And effective velocity is essentially how fast a pitch looks to the hitter's eye. In a lot of ways, this is more important than real velocity, but it works sort of in tandem with real velocity, and we'll get into that in just a second. Although effective velocity is just a theory, it is a theory that I agree with in a lot of ways. When we look at it, as far as the way that pitchers are successful or not successful, we can actually say that effective velocity is in a lot of ways more important than real velocity because it's what affects hitters the most. But in reality, these two different factors of pitching work in tandem together, like I said. And so although effective velocity is better than real velocity, effective velocity and real velocity together will create wins and success far beyond that which either one of them could possibly ever create. So now let's go ahead and take some time to look at an example. We're going to start out by looking at the strike zone as designated by the box, and we're working with a right-handed hitter in this example. You can see here how a right-handed hitter's eyesight looks down towards the strike zone from above and to the right of it. Now let's pretend that we drew a line through the strike zone. This line exemplifies the distance through the strike zone away from the hitter's eye that is equal. It's equal distance from the hitter's eye. That means that the ball looks like it's at the same exact speed to the hitter's eye as long as it's on this line. If it is up and away from them, or if it's down and towards them, the fastball looks like it's exactly the same speed, in theory. Also, in theory, the further the ball gets away from this line, it looks either faster or slower to a hitter's eye because it's either approaching the hitter's eye or moving away from the hitter's eye. So basically the way that we can look at this is that if you throw an 80-mile-an-hour fastball anywhere on that line, it's going to look 80 miles an hour. Now if you throw it closer to the hitter up and in, it might look 82, 83, 84 miles an hour. If you throw that down and away, maybe 77, 78 miles an hour. So let's look at another example. This time we have another right-handed hitter, and we're going to draw our line that's going to go right through the middle there from up and away to down and in. And we're going to throw our first pitch, let's say right down the middle, about waist high, thigh high, 80 miles an hour. So that 80-mile-an-hour fastball is actually going to look 80 miles an hour. Next pitch, we throw another fastball, four-seam fastball up and in. That same 80-mile-an-hour fastball this time maybe looks 83 miles an hour to the hitter's eye, so it looks like we've gained some velocity. Now with two strikes, we throw a curveball down and away, out of the strike zone at 70 miles an hour. But because of the location of the pitch, it actually looks like it's 66 miles an hour. So what we've done here with only two different pitches, 10 miles an hour apart, is we've created what looks like a separation of 17 miles an hour between the number 2 and the number 3 pitch. The location here has also made it difficult for the hitter because we've changed their eyes, forced them to look at a pitch up in the zone and down in the zone. Moving a hitter's eyes around can mess with a hitter's balance and timing. And remember, hitting is timing, so pitching is disrupting timing. The difference in change of speed and location with this particular pitch sequence has done all the work for us. Even though we don't throw maybe 100 miles an hour, it makes everything look a whole lot faster and a lot more deceiving. So let's look at one more example here. In this example, we started with another fastball down and away, sort of to a location where a lot of pitching coaches actually really want their pitchers to work, is on that outside corner more often than not. If we threw it at 80 miles an hour, here it probably looks 76. So that's the only problem with throwing the pitch to that particular location, is that based on the effective velocity theory, you're actually losing velocity throwing the pitch there. But you're forcing the hitter to have to sit back and wait for that pitch, which makes it that much more difficult. And remember, hitting is timing, so we're trying to disrupt the timing, and that's a fantastic way to do it. The second pitch there we threw is a changeup, pretty close to the same location, at 72 miles an hour. But at 72 miles an hour, it actually looks 68 because we threw it down and away. So the idea here is that we're messing with the hitter's eyes again, messing with their timing, throwing them off balance. The third pitch we threw in the sequence was another fastball up and inside. Let's say that maybe he ramped up and he threw it at 82 miles an hour instead this time. Well, that looks like it's 85 to the hitter's eye. So this accomplishes two tasks. One, we change their eyes again. We force them to go from looking downwards towards a pitch and looking more at chest level to a pitch, or even just right under the hands. And it looks 85 miles an hour. To a lot of young hitters, and a lot of you are still facing young hitters, that might back them off the plate just enough. If you can get a hitter to back off the plate, well, then we're successful because we've changed their timing and forced them to change their approach to fit what we're doing to them. And last but not least, after throwing the fastball up and inside, backing them off the plate, hopefully at this point, you've pitched well enough that you've got 2 strikes out of the 3. The fastball and the changeup alone both should have landed for strikes 1 and 2. Remember, we always want to work to get ahead. So to use this effective velocity theory, you're going to have really good command. Location, location, location is key all the time, okay? Now, the finishing move that we're using now, in case he did not swing at that fastball up and inside, we're throwing a curveball down and away. Maybe even in the dirt, you might bounce it. So this fourth pitch, let's say you threw it at 70 miles an hour. If you throw that really down and away, then he has to have the same timing that he would have if he were hitting a 65 mile an hour curveball, because it's actually that much slower getting to him and slower looking to the eye. Okay, so that makes it that much more difficult. Now look at the difference in velocity that we've created here. It's a 20 mile an hour difference between those two pitches. But in all reality, we're not throwing anything really different than, let's say, maybe 10 mile an hour difference. We're just throwing it to the corners, and that's messing with a hitter's timing, severely throwing them off balance and giving us the upper hand. The only caution I have here is that this location, outlined by the stripes, the down and inside corner, we want to try to avoid unless you're throwing 2 seams or sinkers. 2 seams and sinkers that run back inside actually work really well with effective velocity. The only reason that I say that we want to try to avoid this particular location is because this is sort of the powerhouse for most hitters. This particular spot, especially for left-handed hitters for whatever reason, hitters do a really good job of reaching down and pulling that ball out of there, and pitchers say, but I made a great pitch. But you threw it right in his wheelhouse. You can't throw to that location. If you do, we need to work right on the back of the plate, work down around the knees, work on the corners, and throw things that move across the effective velocity zones. If we can do that, then we'll draw a lot of ground balls. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Good luck, and go get 'em.